this video will go over kind of the nuts and bolts of how to set up the drill to actually plant your seed in your field. The first thing you want to do is you want to tilt the drill itself so that the top of the planter is level with the ground. And you do that by adjusting this bar right here. And so it's tilted just a little bit forward. So I'm just going to spin this. And it adjusts the drill so that it's level with the ground. Once you get it level, there's a little lock nut that you can tighten down to keep it in place. That guy right there. Once you get it leveled, you can come on back to the backside here and determine what seed you're going to be planting and you determine that by which box you're going to use for the planter. So small seeds like clover, alfalfa, things like that are usually used the back seed, the grass box seed. Larger sized seeds such as grain or cover crop seed, you use the grain box, which is up front. Both of these boxes, you adjust the flow of the seed that's coming out of those boxes with these two adjustment knobs. So this one up front adjusts the grain box right here. This one right here adjusts the grass box. They have a lock nut on them that should be pretty tight when you first get to it. So when that's all tightened down, you just loosen that up and back it out all the way. If you spin this counterclockwise, and then you just push the shaft all the way in, and that will start the adjustment at the maximum drop of seed. Right here on the back side of the grain box, you can see this little section is where the seed will actually be picked up out of the box and dropped down into the seed tube. So after pushing on that, you can see there's quite a bit of exposed area that has a lot of channels that will be picking up your seed. As you spin this out clockwise, it pulls the shaft that way and reduces the amount of seed dropped out of the box. So you can see the amount of grooves are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So that means that less seed will be picked up and dropped down the seed tube. Inside the grass box and the grain box, there is a chart that will help you determine how to adjust this part of the seed box. So this drill is a 7.5 row spacing drill, so you don't even have to look at the 10-inch row spacing. So you're only looking at this part right here of the chart. So looking at this, there's different types of seed: crimson clover, red clover, sweet clover, orchard grass, different types of seed. This here, the sprocket ratio, is the amount of grooves exposed in that drop tube. So when I pushed the shaft all the way in here, and this was all the way exposed, that's the maximum amount of seed that's being dropped. So that's 1 1/8 inches on your chart. As you spin this clockwise and it becomes less and less exposed, that's what you're measuring to calibrate it on this chart. So that's the grass box here and its adjustments. The grain box is similar here. You're gonna release that lock nut, and then you can spin this out and push it in all the way, and that's gonna be the maximum amount of seed that's gonna drop out of the box. As you spin this clockwise, it will pull the shaft out and reduce the amount of seed that's going to be dropped. So as I spin this, it's reducing the amount of seed. Just like the grain or the grass box, there's a chart. Right here inside the grain box. So again, this is a 7.5 drill, so don't even look at the 10. So across here it gives you different types of seed that you could be planting. So soybeans, pretty big, alfalfa, pretty small. And then as you go down the chart, it gives you measurements, 7/8 of an inch being the maximum amount of seed that's going to drop out of the drill. So if you were planting soybeans, you would come down here and you would be planting 132 pounds at the maximum adjustment. As you spin that clockwise, it reduces the amount of seed that's coming out, and those measurements are shown right in here. It's hard to see. So right there where my finger is, there are measurements on that plate. And so you're looking at that plate to adjust the amount of seed that's coming out. The next thing you would want to adjust is how deep the drill goes down into the ground and how hard it's going to push into the ground to open up for your seed to fall into. And so this adjustment right here, these are your press wheels in the back that once this opens up the soil and your seed falls into it, this presses and closes around the seed again. This adjustment here is A is the shallowest and G is the deepest. So if you're planting very, very small seeds like alfalfa or grass seed, you would want to be in this area up over here. If you're planting soybeans or corn or peas, big sized seed, you would want to be on this side over here. And to adjust it, you move this from one notch to the next. So at this adjustment at B, you'd be planting something the size of alfalfa or grass, and then moving this down toward G, you would be planting larger and larger types of seed. You need to adjust every single planter all the way across the drill. This spring-loaded bar right here adjusts how hard it pushes down into the soil to open it up and plant your seed. So this bar here, the farther back you move this one, that's pushing down harder into the soil. So if you had clay soils or heavy soils that were more difficult to push into, you would want more spring tension. If you had light sandy soils, you would move it up to the top and that would push less. Again, you have to adjust all the way across. This one, all the way across on every planter. Okay, so now that we've got it hooked up, calibrated, set, and all your seeds set and ready to go, then you just come on out and you're ready to plant in the field. So once you get out into the field, you're going to want to drop this down with your hydraulics down so that the planters are engaged and your drive wheel is all set on the ground and ready to run the mechanics of the drill. One thing to keep in mind is that it's really easy to get lost in your field. So like when you're driving along and making your passes, just kind of keep an idea of where you're at so that you don't overlap too much or you have big gaps in your field as well. Once you drop this down and it engages all the drill into the ground, you don't ever want to back up because that will seriously damage all of the openers and the planter itself. So you always want to be traveling forward when you engage the drill. If you're going to be making sharp turns, it's always best to raise the drill up out of the ground and make your sharp turn and then lower the drill back down into the ground as you're driving. So here we go, we'll start planting.